So when we were introduced to the concept of Neech-Bhang Rajyog or Cancellation of Debility, this was the first horoscope given to us as an assignment. The horoscope of the Iron Man of India, Sardar Patel, remains one of the most classic case studies to study and understand the true meaning of one of the most difficult concepts of Vedic astrology called Neech-Bhang Rajyog, which is also known as Cancellation of Debility. Now, this is one of the yogas which can make a seemingly weak planet, in fact a planet in its debilitated state, work wonders for you. So in next few minutes we will look at the horoscope of Sardar Patel. We will see how his life's events correlates with the Vedic astrology, and in that also understand the significance of Neech-Bhang Rajyog. So here is the horoscope of Sardar Patel. We have the Taurus ascendant horoscope with Lord of the ascendant Venus in the 6th house of sign Libra. So Venus sign is in the ascendant, which is Taurus, and Venus is also in a sign of Venus, which is Libra. So at very first instance you see an abundance of Venusian personality, and obviously both the signs of Venus being very strong. Now, first thing we should do when we analyze any horoscope is try to find who the real person is from the chart. Who am I, or who Mr. I is in this chart, and I have made a video separately about it. But the crux is that to find the real person, you must try and analyze the most important reference points of the horoscope. And the two most important reference points in any horoscopes are ascendant and the moon. These two together in most cases would define the complete personality of an individual which you are trying to analyze. So let's look at the ascendant first. As we saw, ascendant has a lot of Venus influence, and Venus can be many things but hardly an Iron Man. But let's see what this Venus ascendant can indicate about the personality. So we have Taurus as the ascendant and Venus is in the 6th house. Now 6th house generally is considered one of the negative houses of the horoscope, which represents a lot of obstacles in your life. Now 6th house is also related to a lot of hard work. 6th house is related to police, army, law, courts, etc. So these are the normal significations of the 6th house when somebody thinks about it. But good thing is Venus is in its own sign. Venus is in the sign of Libra itself. And Venus is also very closely related with Mercury and Jupiter. They both are highly benefic planets. Now, what does this placement of Venus means? Now, first of all, Venus and Mercury are together, which are very close to each other, and in the 6th house, which shows obstacles, hard work, and at the same time practical thinking. One other horoscope which comes into mind immediately is the horoscope of Lord Krishna himself, and he was a very shrewd person. He was a very, very smart person who understood the practicalities of life very well. Now consider Jupiter, the planet of wisdom, placed right across it. So one thing is sure, that whenever you have ascendant in a negative house, generally the position at the time of your birth are not favorable, especially in financial terms. Second, with Mercury, Venus and Jupiter so closely placed, the person is highly intelligent, no doubt about that. Very intelligent, very shrewd, very smart, many times very street smart. But this doesn't imply in any ways a very stoic person. It doesn't. It's a preponderance of Venus, Mercury, Jupiter, which is all softer, nicer planets. So it definitely doesn't show a stoic personality. So where does this Iron Man, a ruthless personality, comes in? Let's look at the second reference point. The second reference, Moon, is in the 7th house, which is a good thing because it aspects the ascendant directly, but it is in the sign of Scorpio. Now Scorpio, as you know, is the debilitated sign for Moon. So Moon here becomes very weak. Now at the same time, Scorpio is lorded by Mars, and Mars is that fiery planet. And here comes the first cancellation of debility. The most fundamental principle behind principle of debility is that when a planet is weak or debilitated, just check if its lord is very strongly placed. There's just, many people in classics say many things about conditions for Neech-Bhanga or cancellation of debility, but in the core of it, this remains one of the most practically workable situation, that if the planet is weak, which in this case it is because Moon is in the sign of Scorpio, which is the debilitated sign, just check if the lord of that planet is strongly placed or not. So Moon we see is in Scorpio, but the lord of Moon, which is Mars, is in the sign of Capricorn, and Capricorn is the exaltation sign of Mars. Mars is also placed in the 9th house, which is one of the trine houses, which is a good place for Mars to be. So we definitely see that Mars is quite strongly placed. Now Mars is also situated with Saturn. Now Mars and Saturn generally are enemies. They together again shows a lot of hard work. It also shows police, military, and even law. But the great thing is Mars and Saturn both are in good dignity. Capricorn is the sign of Saturn itself. So Mars is very strong, Saturn is also there, which actually adds to the strength of Mars, yet it imparts more ruthlessness or more strictness to Mars. And now we can definitely see that Moon, the lord of the Moon, is very strongly placed, so the cancellation of debility definitely exists. And with this kind of cancellation of debility, what happens is Moon, which was supposed to be weak, gets a lot of strength. Now that strength is of the type Mars and Saturn. Mars and Saturn together definitely makes, this is the combination for steel. In mundane astrology, if you want to see anybody having some profession related to iron, steel, or any kind of ore, Mars, Saturn, they always play a role in it. So what this cancellation of debility of Moon because of Mars and Saturn together shows that the person emotionally is absolutely stoic. They never would let any emotion show up. They would never want anybody to understand what's going on in their mind. Especially, they would never make them feel vulnerable to absolutely anybody in life. Now, generally, if you just have this Moon and this Mars Saturn, the person might end up being in police force or in some kind of army or weaponry related activities. But the other reference which is ascendant, does not support army or anything like that. That other reference is all about Venus, Mercury, Jupiter. So if you blend these two together, you get a person who actually worked as a lawyer. So, it was related to police, it was related to law and courts, but he wasn't a fighter himself. He was a fighter in the sense he used his knowledge to fight. He used Mercury, Venus and Jupiter because that's what he was. He was a great learned person, but at the same time, he was physically also very hardworking. So let's put our findings so far with the analysis we have done. Number one, because of moon debilitation and also the Lord of Ascendant in the 6th house, but in a strong position, we can clearly say that the birth will be in a modest family, which I mean financially modest, but the family members in the family would be high in values because the ascendant Venus itself is surrounded by Venus, Mercury, which are both the benefics, and also the moon, the Lord of the Moon is placed in the 9th house with Mars and Saturn. Second thing, let's see about his father. Father is always denoted by the 10th house, and 10th house Lord is Saturn. Saturn is well placed in the 9th house along with Mars. So Mars and Saturn, strong combination here. As in the beginning we said that when you have this Mars, Saturn in Capricorn very strong with Moon also placed in a Martian sign, a person would have high physical energy. He is often seen indulged in some kind of police or armed forces. And they both are true for his father. His father actually first fought against British in the 1857 mutiny as a soldier, and then later he became farmer and started farming on his ancestral land, which was over 10 acres. Now thirdly, about Sardar Patel himself, we see that Venus has a strong influence of Jupiter and Mercury, which also happen to be with the 4th Lord Sun. So ever since childhood, the person should have great interest in education, and because of this is the strong influence of 6th house and Mars Saturn influence on the moon, a lot of physical activity should also happen from the early childhood. And it is known that Sardar Patel was one of the brightest student in his young age, though there were constraints related to finance, but he was one of the brightest student who actually paid for his own education as a lawyer. He saved money to do the degree and actually become part of the bar. And ever since his childhood, he used to work with his father, help him in his farming. So a great physical activity as well as mental activities were part of his life ever since early childhood. So these are some of the things which we can easily decipher just by understanding the reference point, which is the ascendant and the moon correctly. And analyzing these 2 points is always the core in deciphering any horoscope. Now many other events of his life, like his rise in the political scene, which happened in the Sun's time period, or the early separation with his wife, which happened in the Saturn-Venus time period, or the strong change in his life which came about during the Venus-Jupiter time, where he transformed from being a person mostly concerned about his own family and earning wealth and money to a person very active in the political scene and started fighting for the freedom of India. So some of those are directly related to the Neech-Bhang or cancellation of debility of Sun, which is here in the 6th house. Now, since this video has already exceeded about 15 minutes, I am going to take a break here and talk about the effects of Sun's cancellation of debility in the next part of this video. So friends, I hope you like this explanation of Neech-Bhang Rajyog. Please do like and subscribe to my channel for more interesting videos. Thank you for watching, and until we meet again, happy learning.